Hey, welcome, Mask fans. We are here to discuss Mask Chat like usual, except we've got a little bit of a treat. Hold on tight if you haven't heard the headlines yet. There is a chance that Mask might be seen a little sooner than we think. And if you've been following us on Agents of Mask or followed Eric over on BoulderHill.net or even Bill Ferris over at MatTracker.com, there's a lot of chatter discussing what looks like a combined or multi-universe style movie, which will house at least 5 uh, entities that Hasbro now owns, and one of them happens to include our beloved M.A.S.K. So let's get straight to the polls and get our reactions to this. Jason, what's your reactions to the hype and the news?
Let me just go ahead and skim through the actual press release.
Okay.
And so everybody's got it fresh on their minds, and we can kind of react to that. But it says Paramount Pictures and Hasbro Incorporated announced a groundbreaking deal today to collaborate on future films for 5 of Hasbro's iconic properties. Now, I don't know if iconic, you can call all of these iconic, but we'll see. Under the agreement, Paramount and Allspark Pictures, which is Hasbro's film label, will establish a cross-property, interconnected, on-screen universe featuring the deep stories and great characters from Hasbro brands G.I. Joe, Micronauts, Visionaries, M.A.S.K, which in quotes is Mobile Armored Strike Command, and ROM, or I guess you could just say ROM. Here's a quote: Paramount and Hasbro have had a long-standing relationship, and we are proud of the success we've enjoyed on the Transformers and G.I. Joe franchises, said Brad Gray, chairman and CEO of Paramount. We're excited to grow our agreement and make even more movies based on these popular and powerful Hasbro characters and their worlds. Then it says Allspark Pictures, Hasbro's label, will produce the films, and Brian Goldner, chairman of Hasbro, Stephen Davis, executive blah 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 blah, Josh Feldman, have worked closely with Paramount in shaping the interconnected universe for the properties. To develop the creative roadmap for G.I. Joe, Micronauts, Visionaries, M.A.S.K, and ROM, Hasbro and Paramount will assemble a writer's room which will include some of the most notable creative talent in Hollywood. And then there's another quote here from Hasbro CEO. Hasbro and Allspark Pictures put storytelling at the center of everything that we do. These brands are filled with memorable stories and vivid characters, and this universe creates a framework for how they will be interconnected. This is Brian Goldner, Chairman, President, CEO of Hasbro. Extending our partnership with Paramount allows us to continue our long-term strategy and overall vision to build dynamic worlds for all our brands, and we are thrilled to collaborate with them as we develop these properties. So, and then it just brags on how much they've made with Transformers and G.I. Joe. So I guess what stood out to me, and Eric's on the line with us, I don't know if we mentioned that, but they mentioned several times in here films or movies. So this multi-universe, whatever they're creating, it sounds a little bit, it could either, I guess, go one of two ways for me. You have the Avengers type world where you have all of these guys in one movie, and there's going to be multiple movies. Or you do like they did with, Iron Man and Thor and Captain America, where you have some of the other superheroes appear in the movies, and you build it that way until maybe there's one movie with all of them in it. So that's the way I take it. What do you say, Eric?
Well, the thing that's really interesting is that some of these properties, it's not that hard to imagine them coexisting. In particular, G.I. Joe and M.A.S.K. People have, they put Matt Tracker in the toy line, and they gave him that weird cameo in the comic book years ago, and people said, M.A.S.K. could be a sort of part of G.I. Joe,
Mm-hmm.
and that's not really a stretch. Neither of them, they're both set in present day-ish, and the only difference is that they have access to a cool technology. But then you have Micronauts and ROM, and those are both future or near future kind of stories,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't know how they will relate there. And then Visionaries, I love Visionaries, one of my favorite shows, but Visionaries is set like 100 years in the future after a post-apocalyptic change to the world where technology no longer works. You have 4 properties for whom technology is literally the linchpin,
Right.
and then you have one where no technology. So
I kind of took Visionaries as and I'm going to, I guess, keep referring to the Avengers with this, just because it's a natural comparison, I guess, for what
Right.
they did. But I take Visionaries as the Thor of those superheroes, where Thor is, a different world, different setup altogether, and just kind of gets shoved into our world. So,
Mm-hmm.
if you're going to do a separate Visionaries movie, that would be awesome. But it's going to be delicate how you tie, like you said, how you tie it into these other franchises that are, I don't know, more modern times at least.
I can even see tying Micronauts and ROM to G.I. Joe and M.A.S.K in some way. They're still both technology driven, I guess you would say.
Uh-huh.
And it's just like Visionaries was so completely wrapped up in magic.
Right.
But unless they rewrite Visionaries to a point where it's barely Visionaries, that's the only thing I can think of, is that they basically have to redo it where there's no magic, and it's all using technology that lets them turn into animal. I mean,
I know, it's weird.
I want to see a Visionaries movie, but I don't know if I want
Everything else in with it.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know how they're going to link these other 4 together. Now, we don't really know for certain that all 5 of these brands. Well, obviously GI Joe's already had a couple movies, but we don't know that the other 4 are for sure going to get
Their own, or they're married.
Yeah. So, I'm very excited that for the first time ever we got a formal release announcement acknowledgement of M.A.S.K. That's really cool.
Yeah. And that's what I'm kind of taking out of this too. I don't know about you, Wyatt, but it's more of the fact that they're finally at least putting it in the forefront instead of, putting on a slideshow somewhere and burying it in their website.
I'm thinking this was kind of I won't call it a true Christmas present, but I think this is the hopeful event, at least for 2015, that we were looking for, because we got that whisper, back in May?
Yeah.
And there was nothing whatsoever come the 30th anniversary, at least our date, that we kind of struck. But at the end, here, December, they at least acknowledge it, that, this brand exists past its trademark. But I'm kind of like Bill, after all this works, especially with him and Eric specifically, they've been on the internet ground pounding M.A.S.K for, 15 plus years, maybe 20 years? We're kind of the new kids on the block, so to speak, not to use 80s terms, but, we're kind of the new kids here trying to just put all of us together, and this was just I won't say it's a Christmas present, but it's like a stocking stuffer. The treat's there.
I was
just
glad
a matter of what's going to happen.
I was glad that they did get it out this year, since it's still the 30th anniversary. I did go onto Hasbro's site today and found an interesting little tidbit, that spreadsheet, or that, not spreadsheet, that slideshow that we had touted back in June and July. Then they had M.A.S.K's logo on there, and that was a big deal. Being on a Hasbro site. They put a new one up in November, and M.A.S.K is gone. So that kind of puzzled me that you would stick it in there for 6 months, and now it's gone.
Well, if they're planning on using the property, they're probably planning on, if not completely redoing the logo, updating the logo, and they may not want to create any kind of brand identity confusion.
Yeah.
And they may have pulled it in preparation for that. One thing I noticed with these 5 properties that kind of excited me. So G.I. Joe is obviously the biggest, and we've already got 2 movies of it. But I was looking, I was like, compared to within the other 4, Micronauts, Visionaries, M.A.S.K, and ROM, I was like, for second-tier popularity competition, I think M.A.S.K is the front runner. If anything's going to get developed, I feel like M.A.S.K
would be it. Yeah.
has a better chance than Micronauts, ROM, or Visionaries. I also think that it's probably the cheapest one in terms of visual effects, because Micronauts and ROM, you got to do the future, and Visionaries, I don't know. I'm out of ideas for what they're going to do with Visionaries, but hologram.
The video game with them.
Well, it could be. I don't know.
And with all the WoW and fantasy games out there.
But M.A.S.K should be the cheapest out of all of them to make, and we all know that it is about dollars and cents at the end of the day for all these folks.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I can definitely, and like we talked about to start with having them putting films and movies in there. It's intriguing to me to see how they're going to do it, because I can see them doing some kind of G.I. Joe and M.A.S.K team up and then spinning M.A.S.K off possibly into their own movie if it's popular enough. Or I could also see them just going full-fledged into a M.A.S.K movie, or hinting at it, doing like G.I. Joe 3 and then doing a M.A.S.K movie and then doing a team-up down the road, something like that. So I can see it both ways. But I'm just excited that they, these 5, no matter what we say as far as should it be a movie, should it be just a video game or something they're going to release, obviously they want to do something in the cinematic world, or they wouldn't have put all 5 in there.
Right.
For them. So they've got some kind of ideas, or something has already been pitched, I think. And then they just kind of turn it over to the writers. All right, you write the story from here. So I think this has been going on for a while, and I think they finally got to the point where everybody was happy.
Right.
That makes sense.
And then now they're going public saying we're gonna start developing. So.
And part of it could have been like Doug and some other guys back indicated that there might have been some legal loopholes that they had to jump through before
Could be.
they did too much. And when we saw that hint last year with the trademark renewal, maybe Hasbro finally went through all the exhaustive work to get all the rights so they could do something now this year, or at least begin the workings, rather than, it seems like they've been sitting on M.A.S.K for 29 or 20, at least 20 years, with no real true 100% right to do whatever they wanted, whether it was toys, whether it was videos, TV, doesn't matter. Maybe they didn't have every single right to do everything. Now they do.
That's a good point. I remember that when Shout released the DVDs in America, the reason they didn't release the racing series, they said, was because they couldn't get the rights for it.
Right.
It was, let's be honest, it was the 10 episodes people cared the least about, and it was giving them the most trouble to get a hold of. So the M.A.S.K,
screw it, right?
yeah, it wasn't worth it. So the fact that the M.A.S.K rights are tied up makes sense, because it was a property that was made by Kenner, but then Kenner's out of business, and bought by Tonka. Tonka's out of business. Bought by Hasbro. But the show was made by bunch of guys in Asia and Chaim Saban, who probably just does care. He just wants a check. I'm sure he would let them have it. He's too busy, driving home his dump trucks full of money from Power Rangers.
And He-Man and everything else, yeah.
Yeah, I mean him. Yeah, so it does sound like it's so many people have some sort of claim on part of the show that I think that you're probably very correct about that, Wyatt, that it took them a lot of time before they got all the paperwork in place, because the worst thing that they could do would be to make a movie, have it be a mega success, and then someone shows up and says, you know that you just made all this money on my property, right? So I'm going to take all that money, and thanks for making me rich.
Yeah.
You were mentioning the cartoon, and a smart thing for Hasbro to do would be to get those streaming rights for M.A.S.K, for Visionaries, if they don't already have them, because they have their own little streaming channel, and just start pumping them into their,
Yeah.
Aren't they the hub?
Well, yeah, I think you're right too. But they also have like just a regular streaming channel.
Okay.
That they still they have maybe half of the G.I. Joe episodes on there, and they do have some G1 Transformers and some other variations of them all that you can go on and essentially stream for free. But yeah, I guess even the hub would work too if you start playing these cartoons back. Micronauts was just a toy, correct? And ROM
and a comic book.
Comic booked. Okay, so
and ROM was a comic book, and I don't even know if it had toys. Well, it must have if Hasbro has a piece of it, right?
You would think so, yeah. So anyway, to have those two, I don't even think Visionaries has ever gotten a DVD released, have they?
They have, but not in the United States. They got one in the UK.
Oh.
That needs to happen. I mean, all that can happen. All that supporting stuff can boost right into this hype, I would think, to get this ball rolling into this multi-universe. And I don't know, I wouldn't be surprised if they did do some comics in the meantime. They did that one in 2011 that we've talked about before, that we put up on the site. That was almost a shared universe comic as well.
Yeah.
Because remember on the cover it was everything. It was like Gem and Candyland or something too. I mean, it was something crazy. But I don't know. Maybe we need to dig back through that comic book again and see how they put that together, because I know there's a couple spreads where they have all of the properties kind of outlined, and there's a couple other characters with some dialogue in there, so there might be some hints in there about what they're going to try to do with this. But
yeah, I'm trying.
I don't know. I wish they would try to own the cartoon rights on those two at least, and just start pumping the crap out of those onto their networks and such.
Right.
Well, the hub seems like a natural place because they own it. Just throw it up there. I do remember that M.A.S.K in, I don't know, maybe the early mid-2000s was getting occasional re-airs. No, it had to have been early 2000s. On Jetix. Do you remember that channel? And Jetix is gone now, right?
Yeah, well, I think was it out of France or somewhere? Or somewhere in Europe?
Jetix it did air in the UK.
Okay. I think they still have a Twitter account.
Oh, Jetix was formerly Fox Kids in Europe.
Okay.
So it was Fox. And ABC? It was a Fox ABC part.
Well, if you watch some of the M.A.S.K videos that are on YouTube and compilations and stuff, you'll see Fox Kids are
Right.
JetX, after the fact when
Right.
it's over. So
The
there could be some issues there with getting streaming rights.
right. So, but I can't imagine Fox did anything more than license it, or Disney. I don't. Maybe they were waiting for something to expire. A lot of the time, those deals have time limits built in.
Hmm.
That's always the story I've
Yeah.
heard with Spider-Man at Sony. That's why they'll put out a movie. Sony. The story I always heard is that Sony has to put out a Spider-Man movie every like 3 or something years, and if they don't, then Marvel, the rights revert back to Marvel. Now Sony has to keep paying to keep these rights, but that contract stays
Right.
alive as long as they keep using the property.
Hmm.
And I don't know if that's totally true, but there are crazy things on contracts and deals that are written. So it may be that they needed to wait for some of these contracts to expire so they could get back a hold of them. But
Could
Hmm.
be.
when do you guys think we'll hear anything more concrete? That's kind of this is. I mean, this is almost just to start. This is just enough to start the rumor mill churning, and nothing more.
Right. Yeah, I wish they would have obviously given us more, but I think it's still in their planning stages as well. They're not going to give you, all right, here's a Mask movie in 2018 and a Visionaries in 2019 yet. I don't think they're that close to being.
Well,
Um,
they're not because they're looking even for a writing team. So that tells you that they're still
right.
a few
Yeah.
steps away from even saying, "Okay, 2020, we'll see something," or some type of air date.
Yeah.
Just to,
I think that sometime next year they'll make an announcement, maybe what's first or how they're going to.
proceed with these entities, whether it's going to be Masked first or Visionaries or maybe one whole, like the Avengers style that you're thinking of.
Yeah, yeah. I think they're gonna
But
hopefully be next year.
the thing with the Avengers thing is that they did all of the individual movies before
Right.
putting everyone together, and that's part of why the Avengers was able to work with so many characters because everybody already kind of knew who they were. Nobody
Yeah.
was walking, even if you didn't read comic books, it was hard to not have figured out who Captain America, Iron Man, Hulk, all
Right.
those guys were. So, but if they were to do this, can you imagine if they said coming in summer 2017, G.I. Joe meets Micronauts meets Visionaries meets M.A.S.K meets ROM? Everyone would be like,
What?
I know who
Exactly.
G.I. Joe is,
Right.
and what?
Well, I am leaning towards since we did a story a couple weeks ago on my Recurrent Events podcast that Hasbro has set out for multiple GI Joe movies already. They've done that. They're committed to putting that to writers and getting a few more movies out of that. So if you start from there, it's likely that a new GI Joe movie will be first.
That makes sense. They've already
And
got
right.
people in place.
And if they continue down that same path that they've already gone, if they don't start over, they've killed everybody off
Right.
in the second, except for like 4 Joes. So it would make sense that you keep those Joes and you add in a Matt Tracker and maybe a couple other agents from M.A.S.K, and you build from there. So I mean, that's what I'm leaning towards.
I would be okay with that if Hasbro and Paramount, I guess, think that that'll make it a financially viable by backdooring it from G.I. Joe. They can migrate a lot of those fans,
Right.
and that'll help to guarantee them some sales. Because I understand they need to make money on these things. I mean, I live in a capitalist country, and I'm okay with it, and that's fine. So if that's what they need to do, and like I've already said, I think G.I. Joe and M.A.S.K have a ton of overlap. So
Yeah.
that's not a weird thing either.
Yeah. See, and I would prefer that they start GI Joe over and try to do it right.
More 80s.
Right.
More real American hero style, and then you add, one of the agents in there is Matt Tracker, and you just make a great GI Joe movie. You get that audience, and maybe you start to bring back the people that have given up, since they've seen the first one or even the second one was okay, but I would rather see them do something like that and build new instead of trying to continue on what they've already done.
Right, and they've done that before with that
It's made
Spider-Man
money.
movie.
Yeah.
You know, like the Spider-Man movie, they started out and it was what it seemed like 5, maybe a few more years, but they
The
came out
Tobey
with a new.
Maguires.
Yeah, exactly. So it was a little bit different storyline, but it was still a new beginning for Spider-Man. So there's
Yeah.
two
They're
different versions out there.
they're rebooting Spider-Man with a new actor again too.
Yes.
So this is going to be Sony's third go on Spider-Man. We had 3 movies with Tobey Maguire, who, in retrospect, he was okay. Then we had Andrew Garfield, who I loved. I thought he was really great, and I just also think that the style of them. Oh, Jason doesn't like Andrew Garfield.
I don't know if it was maybe it wasn't him, but I thought they rebooted too early, and
Yeah.
the first one I did not like, and I didn't even watch the second one.
But the second one was not as good. Jamie Foxx, whatever. But I did really like his first one, and then we have I don't. You probably know his name. You're better at the movies, the upcoming movie stuff, Jason. The new guy who's going to be Spider-Man in 2016.
I don't know. I saw a story. I thought maybe they were going to introduce him into an X-Men first.
No, 'cause that's Fox.
I thought they were going to introduce him in with somebody. Maybe it was one of the Avengers movies or something. Before they did a standalone, but I mean, here we go again. I would be okay if they did something like that instead of just trying to do a whole new Spider-Man. Okay, so you look at if you take Batman for example, and we're getting off on a rabbit trail, but we've had several actors as Batman, and it just seems to get worse and worse and worse until there's somebody that comes in, right, and you've taken enough time, somebody comes in and does something entirely new with Spider-Man. And, Tobey Maguire, that was more, I don't know, I think that was more real world stuff than the comic book, and I think they tried to do more comic stuff in these last couple, but I don't know, maybe you go dark with them or something. They tried to do that in number 3, and that was all over the place. But anyway, I don't know. I mean, it's going back to GI Joe. I don't think people, if you started over and you made it more real American hero, GI Joe fans are going to forget those 2 movies really quickly.
Yep.
I think GI Joe fans are going to keep going no matter what. So, and if it's good though, they're going to tell people. They're going to say it's not just a GI Joe movie. It's a good movie. And I think that there is a huge population that maybe more like the 3 of us. Maybe GI Joe isn't our diehard thing, but if someone said, "Hey, the new GI Joe movie's good," we'd all be there that weekend.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's if the Transformers movies, the last couple ones, people tell me they're not very good, I don't go to the theater to see them. But if someone's like, "Look, the new Transformers movie's awesome," I'm like, "Okay, Transformers, and it's good." I go there. Now, no matter how bad it is, all 3 of us are going to see a M.A.S.K movie on opening day.
Right.
I mean, we may be sitting in that theater alone and cheering and hooting and hollering at the screen, but the diehard fans are really not part of the target market because the brand owners know that us crazy folk are going.
Yeah.
They can put 15 ballerinas dancing on the screen, and if they call it Mask the Ballet, you know,
We'll show up.
we'll at least buy the tickets, and
Yeah.
that's all
Well,
they care about. But it's getting those casual people.
Yeah. Well, think about this. You know, G.I. Joe is never going to make Transformers money. Transformers is more worldwide, more universal to people, I think, and has been more popular than G.I. Joe or pretty much anything Hasbro has, besides like Monopoly or something. But so you've got a ceiling because it is more of an American soldier type, franchise.
Hmm.
You've got a ceiling to probably how much you make. Now you throw in other characters.
Well, they can tweak G.I. Joe, though. They can make it a NATO type of
Well,
organization.
they could, but then would we go see it?
I mean, G.I. Joe was kind of NATO, though. There were a number of foreign characters in it.
Yeah, and then you do that now, though, and then people would cry out racism or whatever.
Right.
You can't do a Spirit. You can't do, I don't know who else. You can't
Quick
do an
Kick.
Ali Bombay from M.A.S.K, But at the same time, I don't know. I think maybe they're trying to build or add more elements in to appeal to more people to get their numbers up on G.I. Joe. I mean, they spent, I think, and these are approximates. They spent probably $250 million making those first two G.I. Joe movies, and I think I saw that in that press release it was something like 675 they've made worldwide on G.I. Joe.
That's not that good, is it?
You're making what is that?
2 to 1.
Yeah. So you're
Not
making
even.
money, but you're not, you're definitely not losing anything. You're tripling your money.
Right.
Transformers, I don't know what their budget has been on 5 of those, but they've made $3.8 billion.
Right.
So it's like 6 times more than what G.I. Joe has made. They've had 2 more movies, or 3 more, but at the same time, they've got to be looking at it from that angle too. And as much as people bitch about Michael Bay and how he ruined their childhood, he doesn't give a crap. All he gives a crap about is making Hasbro and all these people happy with their bottom line. So trash him all you want. He
makes money.
Yeah, he makes the money for the company. He makes what they want. So whether we're going to ever get a G.I. Joe or a M.A.S.K or even Transformers that we really want, that is more, that Generation 1 era, probably not going to happen because it's going to have half of the explosions that are, and nobody's going to get shot. So I guess my point is, I don't care if Michael Bay gets it, really. I'm happy that they're pushing through and it's going to get made, and I don't think it's ever going to be to the point where we want it. But pulling in more franchises is smart, I think, just to reach more people. I think that's what they need to do. They're bringing in more franchises. So one of these franchises might be hugely popular in China or Japan or somewhere else around the world, enough to get their numbers up to, they might get 2 movies or they might combine them into something else. So it could be they're just laying the playing field for the future,
My biggest fear is just that they won't actually make anything. I know I'm ever the pessimist for the future of M.A.S.K, but unfortunately a press release does not a movie make, and it could take years and never happen. We've heard since probably about the year 2000, I have heard every 2 to 3 years that a Voltron movie is in production.
True.
I have never seen anything. I've never seen a script or casting. I've never even seen concepts from any of that stuff just the Thundercats cartoon that rebooted in 2011 took them about 10 years to get off the ground, because I actually did know a writer from that show, and he told me that they wrote it. They started working on it at like the beginning of the
Wow.
2000, like
Wow.
around 2002. I was talking to him. He's like, "I've been working on the new Thundercats," and 10 years later,
Here it comes.
So,
congratulations.
Right. That like I said, that's my fear, is that some of these may fall through, and that was kind of why I was saying that amongst these four that don't include G.I. Joe, I feel like M.A.S.K is the front runner for getting priority and getting developed. I think it's probably the cheapest, which that's good for them. It means they're more likely to make it. They can probably use a lot of that leftover junk from the G.I. Joe and Transformers movie, because that's what everyone always said M.A.S.K was, right? It was half G.I. Joe, half Transformers. So, well, we've already made both of them, so you should be able to make the movie for like $20. That's all you need, right? Just take all the footage from the editing room floor and put them together. I don't care who does it. I don't even care the style they do it. My only thing is if they do it, I hope it's good. And that can be there's different ways it can be good. You know, it can be funny and be good. It can be really actiony and be good. My biggest hope would be that it would be something like the A-Team movie, where it was surprisingly true to the spirit of the original, while still being fun and modern.
Yeah.
And also something that even if you have no reference point for the original, you love it. Because I don't think you have to know anything about the A-Team to have enjoyed that movie.
No.
And I think that that's where they should shoot for. They need to hire the people who made A-Team. Oh my god, that's perfect. Just go get those writers. They had a great sense of the nostalgia and the modern and... Okay, let's lift these people up, Jason. Call them, put them on the Hangout. I hate this app, but can we?
Well, yeah, we need to get them on here. I mean, we got two writers right here.
Yeah, I was going to say, I wish they would have put an email in the press release that we could send our script to, because
you can tweet them.
I guess so.
Actually, there are contacts in the press release.
Is there?
There's the media contact from Paramount. There is a random person from Hasbro, and then there's another random person from two people from Rogers and Cohen, and I don't know who they are. But there are 4 email addresses at the bottom of the press release. I'm sure none of them would like to hear from you, but that shouldn't stop you.
No, I'll shoot. We'll send it out tomorrow.
Yeah, really.
Why wait so long?
Yeah. We got to dig it up. We got to find it on our hard drive first.
I know where mine is.
I knew you were going to say that.
Mine's readily available.
Yeah.
At this point, is it on a zip disk? I mean, you guys have had that thing for a while.
Well, I'll have to mail it in on a 3.5 floppy.
There you go.
Don't forget to mail a drive with it to read it.
That's true.
True. Well,
touche.
If you guys are cool with everything you said, if you have anything else, we can go ahead and move forward. I was going to post some or read some reactions that we had over on Facebook, and well, we've even had Vaughn, who is tuned in, and we have had a couple viewers, and he, of course, recommended that we send in our script to to the process, and yeah, I why didn't I still stand by it that it would make a fun movie? It has got a little bit of nostalgia in it, enough with the vehicles and such, plus new stuff that I think it's a pretty good go-between. But we weren't thinking of the A-Team movie at the time because the A-Team movie hadn't come out yet. But anyway. Yeah, Vaughn, he's saying he's really pumped about the Visionaries, that he'd think it would be even better than the cartoon. And then he says that both he says that M.A.S.K is a subgroup of both G.I. Joe and Transformers. I don't know if that's official.
I don't think that's official. I think that's what we've all kind of
Yeah.
speculated from the start.
And one thing that kind of struck me today is, you make a G.I. Joe movie. If they're truly including G.I. Joe and Transformers into this mix, you make a new G.I. Joe movie. You do some kind of they had the cube, the Allspark or whatever, that made stuff transform.
Yeah.
Right.
You use that technology and pump it into some new G.I. Joe vehicles, and there's M.A.S.K. Something like that. That
Sure.
kind of came across my brain. So you can use, and that's not necessarily a like multi franchise movie, just by they actually used, what was it, M.A.S.K or something, or that Unit E in Transformers Prime. They just hinted at it one episode or whatever, right?
Oh, well, they brought in that truck that they said was part of their Mobile Armored Strike Command division, and it was to give Optimus a new alternate mode. And nothing ever again.
Yeah.
In that show, I ended up watching all of that episode. I watched the episode before, then I watched a couple more episodes after that, and I had a friend who was watching Transformers Prime anyway, and I was like, I can't watch anymore, but you let me know if anything else pops up. And no, it's just like, what are they doing? Like, why are they messing with people? And I think that was just a writer who likes M.A.S.K.
Yeah.
Like, sneaking it. He writes for Transformers. He's probably a bit of a nerd like us, so that's fine. And he probably loves M.A.S.K, and that was his way of just sneaking it in for the fans.
Right, but it's easier to do that when you're just doing one feature-length movie. You can sneak all kinds of stuff like that in there and not have to, okay, well, where did that go in this next episode,
Right.
So, I don't know. I think something like that could work. And let's just go through some of these other comments. And one of the ones that first stood out to me, because the way I blogged about it was that it was going to be one kind of like Avenger-style movie. And Neil Trevette says, the way I understood it is there'll be 5 films, each focusing on one of the 5 cartoons, but all may contain cameo and references to the others, and another with them all working together may be a bit like Marvel has done. So I wanted to give him credit for kind of putting that on my brain, and because I didn't read that with the films and movies in the press release when it jumped into my feed, and I was like, oh, what? I was freaking out. So, I'm glad he commented on that. There's a lot of. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was going to lead in over on the post itself on our Agents of M.A.S.K page. The guy going by the handle of Not a Chance.
Yes.
He says, well, at least they didn't include their series of live-action giant robot travesties in their shared universe. The G.I. Joe was the better handled of the 2 series when adapting them, and it makes a decent point from which to introduce M.A.S.K. I don't know enough about Micronauts and ROM to really comment on how well they will actually fit.
Who does know?
Yeah.
Yeah, but based on very little, I do know they wouldn't be too out of place and could work reasonably well. Like you said, Eric, he comments that the odd one out here is Visionaries. The whole premise is an end to science and a revival of magic. I don't see that working too well in a shared world with the others unless they plan on using ROM as a bridge between the 2 different planets, Earth and Prismos.
Yeah.
It sounds like DC and WB, they're kind of hoping to create a Hasbro-centric movie-verse similar to Marvel's. I just hope they don't rush things that the way DCWB seems to be.
Yeah.
I think he's got a lot of accurate points, and a lot of it that we touched on too.
Yeah.
I definitely think they're trying to go after that model that Marvel has created. They started with Iron Man, and it did so well, and then they just were able to build it, and now you have really strong franchises in Iron Man, Captain America, all of these properties, and it's making them so much money,
Yeah.
which is cool. I mean, and they're good movies for the most part. Thor too, they're fun movies in the genre. But most of all, they're just making so much money, and DC has not been able to really do it. They've tried and they're trying. They've rebooted Superman twice in the last 10 years or less,
Yeah.
maybe 10 years, and neither time did it work. The Brandon Routh one, Superman Returns, was that what it was called?
Yes.
And then there was Man of Steel.
Yeah, I actually liked Kevin Spacey as Lex Luthor better than I liked his Superman in that movie. But
they just didn't do that well, though.
No, they didn't. And I don't know. I mean,
Green Lantern,
Man of Steel, they kind of tried to do, I think, what what's his face did with Batman.
Christian Bale, or
yeah, Christian Bale and Nolan.
Christopher Nolan.
Yeah, then they tried to go a little bit on the darker side.
Mm-hmm.
I've even seen videos of people who have enhanced the footage from Man of Steel to make his suit kind of pop like Christopher Reeves, where it's like really bright blue, and it makes a difference. I think it does.
I'm sure.
But I don't know. Going back to your point about Marvel, yeah, they're making money hand over fist. I'm to the point now where I'm like, I'm done with they're pushing this storyline throughout, and then they're to the next storyline. None of their movies are like Iron Man. I thought was a pretty good end. It didn't necessarily push you into the next Iron Man or into another movie, but now with the Avengers, I have not seen the second Thor. But the Cat movies too, I don't know. I just feel like we're being pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed, and I'm done.
Yeah.
I'm done being pushed. I'm not probably going to go to the theaters to see the Civil War or whatever. Right. I'm just kind of, and I love Iron Man. The first Iron Man is probably my second favorite superhero movie ever.
It's great. It is.
So I'm ready to jump on the DC boat because I am a Batman fan, and that Batman '89 is probably my favorite superhero movie, and I'm ready to see what they can do now. And if with the Suicide Squad and some of the other stuff that they've got going on, and jump over there for a while. But the model is there to do it.
The thing to take away is that it's not enough to have popular properties. You have to make a good movie.
That's true, yeah.
Even if you're a little bit sick of them, I think the average Marvel movie for the past, since I kind of look at Iron Man 1 as when they started this.
Mm-hmm.
This sort of plan or movement.
Yeah.
And since then, the average Marvel movie has been good or better.
Right.
With the exception of Fantastic Four. They can't get Fantastic Four right, but whatever.
True.
But the X-Men movies, actually the X-Men movies did kind of come first, huh? But that's not them. That's Fox. So scrap that thought. But the Avengers stuff.
I guess they've all been Fox, even the rebooted one, which I thought was pretty good. The X-Men, what is it, First Class?
Yes, that one was very cool. And now they've kind of mixed that with...
I didn't see the last one.
Oh.
And I saw the trailers for the new one, what was it, this week. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know. Well, see, there's somebody else that made a good point. They commented, I think, does Hasbro own Centurions? You remember that one?
I do remember Centurions.
I don't know if they own it
The
now.
toys. I'm sure they must, because Kenner made the toys, right?
I think so.
I was trying to look it up, but even them would be, it was kind of a G.I. Joe with special suits. I mean, it was almost like the first G.I. Joe movie was Centurions wannabe,
Right.
You could even include them. So there's many out there. They don't have to go too far.
Ruby Spears, sorry.
Was it Ruby Spears? Okay.
Yeah.
That did the
Centurions.
cartoon. And that was only maybe...
But Kenner did the toys.
Oh, okay.
So Hasbro may have some ability to leverage.
So, yeah, I mean, they even have other properties like that nobody but us would know about.
Mm-hmm.
But if you at least not try to, put all that on something like G.I. Joe that just didn't have that stuff. It's not they're known for the individual personalities of each one. Each one has their own kind of thing, in G.I. Joe, and you're putting on other new technology and stuff that's just not G.I. Joe, I think that's why people didn't really like the first one. What is this? What are these people running around in these weird suits? And,
those suits were the worst, and they.
So you could do something like that and just here are the Centurions that come in and they've got their tech and they can go kick some butt during our huge battle against the aliens that come out of the sky. I'm sick of that too. Have you noticed that?
Everything's an alien.
Well, I don't. I watched the new Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles trailer, and it almost seemed like Avengers all over again. And Transformers, they've done it where there's like things coming out of the sky and people are in the city, and I'm like, don't do this again. But I don't know. I guess it works.
I think it's an easy way to explain something that if you were to try to make it something that came from Earth, you would spend half the movie trying to explain.
Yeah.
The Ninja Turtles, the first movie, I recently rewatched. There's no turtles for a lot of that movie because they're busy explaining.
Yeah.
And I remember the first Hulk movie with Pretty Boy. What's his name? Eric Bana.
Oh, yeah.
There's like no Hulk for the first 30 minutes because they're explaining and setting things up, and I'm all for a good explanation and a story, but sometimes it's like, let's go. Come on. Somebody needs to fight somebody, and I want to see the thing that I'm here that's in the title of the movie.
Right.
I didn't buy a ticket to April O'Neil. I didn't buy a ticket to Bruce Banner. I bought a ticket to Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and the Hulk. And I saw them both in theaters, and both times sitting there going, where are they? Where's the big green things?
Yeah. Well, and that could be, and just going through the comments today, I saw a lot of people like, ooh, visionaries. And that could be that part of the movie where you're in G.I. Joe and you're just waiting for that visionaries moment, or whatever, because they're in there, and there's been multiple reports on the web somewhere that, the visionaries are in there, and you're waiting for that. So maybe they try to make an action movie and then they plug in one of those new ones for geeks like us.
I think that we're going to know if anything's really happening and which one's coming first, like you said, when G.I. Joe 3 or whatever it's called hits. Because I think that they will put something that ties into it, or a weird comment, or the big thing nowadays is to do the after the credits scene.
Right.
That's what they love to do, and I think Marvel really was the one who kind of kicked that off by teasing their other stuff. They teased that's how they first introduced Samuel Jackson as Nick Fury. Was in
That's right.
Iron Man, right? As a tease
Yep.
at the end of Iron Man, and then they showed Cap's shield, and
Thor's
so
hammer. Yeah.
exactly. And then I mean, it's brilliant because it's basically like a trailer, but you had to go pay to see the movie,
Yeah.
and it creates so much buzz without saying anything about the movie. You don't
Yeah.
commit to any casting, you don't commit to any story, you don't spend any real money. One little 30-second scene at the end of that movie, and you've got people talking and talking for a really long time, and there's no lag between your current movie and your next one. People are already onto it. What are they going to be doing? What are they going to be doing? And I think if they can do that inside of G.I. Joe, a G.I. Joe movie, they can build some of that momentum and excitement
Yeah.
for a Mask movie or even a ROM. My biggest worry is that, like, I just don't know. I don't know ROM at all.
Yeah.
And I barely know Micronauts. And
Well, that's why I'm thinking you have to have some support material in between. And I think they have. Didn't they announce back in Comic Con, San Diego Comic Con, that they're doing a comic for? I think they're doing a comic for ROM and Micronauts. So I think they're trying to build some source material there.
they did a reboot of the comic for Micronauts in the early 2000s,
Mhm.
and there was talk in the early 2000s of doing a movie back then. And it never developed, unfortunately, which is why I say that this stuff could very easily.
Yeah.
It could be nothing more than this press release, and then we're all sitting around in
Yeah.
40th anniversary of M.A.S.K. That's you guys. I'm not going to be quite that old. Just teasing.
Well, you make a good point with the after the credits scenes. You can't. It has to be something recognizable. I mean, the way they did it with Thor had me ready to watch the first Thor movie. Where they showed the hammer, but in the Thor movie, they still built their own story, but they were in that same world, and they kind of picked up where they left off. And here's this hammer, and they kept a few of the same characters, mainly the Shield agents, that crossed over. So if you're doing a G.I. Joe movie and you either discover, and forgive me, I don't remember the characters out of Visionaries, but the main guy, you find his little staff.
Leoric.
Yeah, in the sand somewhere. Or you roll out at the end of the G.I. Joe movie and you see this car transform into a jet. Something like that could do miles for buzz on the internet or whatever.
Yeah, because the people who do know what it is are going to start freaking out. They're like, that's Visionaries or that's M.A.S.K. I can't. Oh my God, they're doing it. And the people who don't know what it is,
they're going to want to find out. Yeah.
Right, because we all know at this point, we're all trained that whatever happens in the after credits scene is really just a trailer.
Yeah.
And then if we don't know, we got to go look it up. Like, people didn't know what that glove was. The big golden glove, and then you go look it up and you're like, oh my God, Infinity Gauntlet, and okay, I'm ready for it.
Or it's like the end of the first Back to the Future movie. You had this fun time machine car, and then what? It could fly?
Yeah.
You remember at the end of that, you were like, oh my gosh, it's gonna fly. It's gonna be totally awesome in the second one. So even doing something like that in G.I. Joe would be fun. Or just having one of the vehicles in there and somebody comes along like Matt Tracker and he knows how to handle this flying car, and then you build from there. But
M.A.S.K. seems
so much.
M.A.S.K. seems like one of the easiest ones to do too, because they often don't like to show casting choices in those after trailer scenes.
Right.
It makes sense. because they're still negotiating. But with Mask, you can very clearly identify the property without the people. I mean, the people themselves are kind of secondary. I think the masks and the vehicles. So you could easily have, like in G.I. Joe, the kind of the Q department developing the tech, whatever they're called, I don't know. But they're saying, they bring in somebody and they go, we've been playing with some new stuff. And they pan across a shot of Spectrum sitting on a workshop table.
That's all you gotta do, yeah.
And then, everyone on the internet is going to go, no freaking way. They're doing it. They're making it. Like, that's it. Or, pan across the motor pool and you see a guy and, Jim, what are you doing? That car is 40 years old. He goes, you can't beat the classics. And he's working on a red Camaro.
Yeah. Or you're at the end of the movie, Cobra has been defeated, but you see Cobra Commander knock on the door of somebody in like this blue military suit that's like fat, and you get Mayhem, you get a tease of Mayhem or something. There's so many ways you can do it.
Yeah.
Without giving the casting away or having to do anything at that point, unless they're going to try to, like they did with some of the, I think they did with some of the Avengers movies where they're like filming back to back or relatively close to each other.
Right.
When they're doing that, but anyway, and I don't mean to. Eric and I have been going back and forth. I know Wyatt.
I know, poor Wyatt.
He's haven't been able to see a lot of these superhero movies and such, but
no, I haven't had much. So you guys are speaking a few chapters ahead of me.
But yeah, I mean, the reaction is there where some of these obscure properties, there are some people that are ready to get them on board, and there's some that are like, oh, just do a Mask movie alone and don't try to cross it over to begin with. So.
And that's what I'm looking at. I've been kind of perusing over things. Most of it's saying, I love Mask, this would be great, or Mask on the big screen. One of them's even, this is kind of cool, it says, Von Baskin says, for real? I mean, it's awesome. That's an awesome, explicitive, really, are we going to see this?
Yeah.
And then you see other discussions of, it's a Marvel crossover, or they're copying WB.
Yeah, see, I don't have any problems with them taking something that has worked.
Exactly. If it works, why not
build.
try it?
Yeah.
I would like them to copy off of a format that works. I would rather them use inspiration that has shown to create a cool world and set of properties. I just hope they do it. I think that's all it comes down to for me. Is just make something. Just don't tease me anymore.
Exactly. It's time to put talk to action.
Right. I just want, and the other thing too was, if they do this multi-universe, what kind of toys do you think they're going to put out? I mean, are we going to get maybe just a couple Mask vehicles and such? Do you think they'll try to, if they go into a full-fledged Mask movie, will they try to do a whole new toy line just for Mask?
I don't know. The first Transformers movie, a lot of people were disappointed that their favorite wasn't in the movie, if you may recall. It was
especially they had half a dozen on both sides.
Yeah, and there were a couple that weren't like mainstays either, especially on the Decepticons. A lot of people were disappointed that there wasn't a Soundwave.
Yeah.
There were a couple of the more, I don't know, third string Transformers, and they got more of them in the second movie. I think a lot of those decisions. I think with M.A.S.K, I think that besides having Matt Tracker and Miles Mayhem, everything else is up in the air. I also think that we're going to see some additional characters because I
Probably.
don't think that the one token female on both sides is going to fly the way it did in 1985.
Yeah.
I think we'll see.
But it did work out for A-Team because you saw what's her name play on there, and there really wasn't another female character, and she wasn't even
Oh yeah,
uh,
Jessica Biel.
like you saw on the actual original A-Team. You didn't.
Just an extra
Um,
agent or whatever.
But
Yeah.
Mask was a bigger group of people to draw from.
it was, and it should have more females. I'll give it that, but it depends on the writers. If not including us, but if the writers want to write in more female parts, or perhaps add agents like you suggested as a female role rather than changing out Dusty to play a female role or something like that.
Or what if they put Duke on Condor? Something like that. I know Eric, you would be up in arms.
What are you doing?
No.
But I could see something like that happening too, where you've got some GI Joe characters kind of intermixed, some established GI Joe.
It could work, and then it could be that second universe or storyline there, where some of them were military people that worked with GI Joe and broke off, and they're just friends, like old military buddies or something like that.
I don't know if it's my bias and our bias, but it just coming out of GI Joe, which we know is their main property behind Transformers. I mean, of these ones that they've announced.
Right.
To me, Mask is such the closest to it that it just seems like the most natural. I just feel like the writers would really have to do backflips to get the other three properties to tie into GI Joe, and I feel like it would take even a child could make up a story that tied Mask into GI Joe. It just takes no effort to imagine that. I wouldn't, and I'm hoping that what that means is that even if some of these other properties either don't happen or take a long time, that Mask has the best chance.
Right.
I agree. One more comment to throw in the mix here from Vaughn, that Hasbro also has some other properties. We mentioned the Centurions. He also says Sky Commanders, Inhumanoids, and the GoBots. Now, I've heard...
Why would they make GoBots?
Well, I actually heard, I think it was this year, that there was some rumblings of trying to do a GoBots movie.
Yeah, I think you actually announced that a few...
It was several months ago that I saw that, and I was like, "Oh, are they going to do that?"
GoBots versus Transformers?
Well, I don't know if it would be something like that. I mean, they're in the process of laying out Transformers, I think 6, 7, and 8 as we speak. So it could be something like that. But if they're not careful, just with the way I think GoBots is set up, it could be really good as far as more like what we remember in the 80s, and might just be like, okay, so why didn't they do this with Transformers? So you don't want GoBots to shine too much, because it is their property as well, and that would be tricky. I don't remember Sky Commanders and Humanoids.
Inhumanoids was really bad.
Oh, okay.
People are going to hate me for saying that, but so Inhumanoids is kind of like G.I. Joe versus the monsters from the center of the earth.
Okay.
And it has a following, as a cult following. I think that the toys were great. I will say that. I think the show was not very good, but then again, it had some cool toys and cool visual designs. So, given that the writers we know are very fast and free with the editing pen, they could turn it into something.
Yes. What's the Dino one?
Dino Riders.
Dino Riders.
Dino Riders.
Yeah,
I heard something about that just a couple months ago.
if I remember right, it's basically regular old dinosaurs, but they would essentially put saddles. They were high-tech saddles and equipment on
Yeah.
top of them, just like they'd ride back in the day, riding elephants, for battle or something. You had
Is
weapons, you
that
had guns,
Hasbro?
and stuff.
That is just begging to become a huge thing because kids and dinosaurs, man. My middle son right now, he lives and breathes dinosaurs. It
Yeah.
seems like. He's asked Santa for one of those crazy ones that you can interact with for Christmas, and I don't know that I can't tell. Is it Hasbro?
Dino Riders?
Yeah.
Dino Riders, it was like Tomy originally.
So
I'm
who
pretty
the
sure.
heck? I can't remember.
Dino
I can't remember off
Riders.
the top of my head what the story said, but
The story of Dino Riders? I know that.
no, I mean the story that I read a couple months ago about it. Oh, here it is.
Tycho, sorry, Tycho, not Tomy.
Tracking board reports that Mattel has teamed with something film to develop a Dino Runners movie. Okay, so that's Mattel.
Oh
So
yeah.
that's not
Well, Tycho was bought by Mattel in '97.
okay. So I mean, all of this, coming together here at the end of the year, and we've had a couple of things that we've heard. This could be really good, a really good year coming up for
Could be.
just announcements and a lot of this stuff coming back that we actually might want to see, and not just sequel after sequel after sequel.
Right.
So it's cool that Mattel's coming at it and Hasbro's coming at it, and we'll just see if some of these come to fruition or not, or if it's just going to be. I mean, even if we got a new cartoon series or whatever out of some of these, it's what else do they have? They're not doing anything original, really, that people are taking to. It baffles me, some of these, and maybe I'm just out of the whole market there for toys and such and franchises that are popular, but you look at that PowerPoint that Hasbro put up, I don't know half of those franchises, and some of them, like Stretch Armstrong, they've had up there for years, and what have they done with it? So,
And that never had anything except toys, right? It didn't have comics
right.
or
I don't think
movies
so.
or a cartoon, as I recall. But I sure had a Stretch Armstrong, and
Right.
my brothers and I tried to kill him on at least a weekly basis. All right, Brian, go to the other side of the room and start pulling.
Yeah.
And
Well,
it was,
I just hate the fact that it feels like we're being poked.
Yeah.
I mean, us children of the 80s and 90s, we just keep getting poked and poked and poked, and nothing ever really comes to fruition but Transformers and G.I. Joe and the big boys and their sequels. So
they made Gem. It didn't do well, but they made
that
it.
wasn't Gem. Really? No. They tried, and what killed me with people just totally bashing it. I didn't see the movie, and I probably will never see the movie.
I will.
But from the beginning, if I remember right, there was all this hype about that, and then I remember watching one video with the director who also did G.I. Joe 2. And he right from the get-go was like, this is going to be a modern spin, and people are all, oh, we want our Misfits, and we want this and that, and I'm like, he told you from the beginning,
You're not going to get it.
You're not going to get it. So, and that's just the whole thing coming back to, all right, what's going to be the most universally liked so we can make the most money? Well, in that instance, definitely what they put in the theater was not what people...
2 weeks.
was
2 weeks. One of the shortest theatrical runs for a major studio picture.
And they didn't, I mean, they released trailers online, but I don't recall seeing anything, any kind of marketing, really.
Which usually means
behind that movie.
it tested really poorly, and they don't want to let the footage out there.
Right. So, I don't know. At least they tried.
And I hope they keep trying. Look, I mean, not every movie's going to be good. Outside of 80s or comic books or cartoon adaptation, like, before that started happening, there were movies coming out, and some of them were good and some of them were bad. And sometimes fixating on the fact that they're an 80s property is not the reason it's good or bad. You know, Gem was bad not because or in spite of being an 80s property. Gem, I guess, was bad. It was a bad movie. And that's what I keep saying. I hope they put something out, and I hope that it's good.
Yeah.
Same here.
Well, should we end this little chat?
I think we've ground the rumor mill down to the nubs.
I think so. We'll just have to wait for the next little tidbit we get, whenever that will be.
We'll be back on the chain for that.
It's only been 28 years.
Let's hope it's not another 28 more before we get close. Well, and like you said, I won't even call this close yet, because press releases come and go, and internet rumors come and go as well.
Right.
But yeah, I just hope they will at least go through with some kind of plan and give it a chance before and even they kill it before it even gets to start filming or whatever.
Right.
So.
Well, it has been very fun chatting with you guys. Thank you for inviting me along.
Hey, thanks for being on with us. It's great to have an extra hand or voice, rather, opinion.
We got to go through some M.A.S.K comics too before too long here.
Oh, okay, yeah. I know where they are. I can put my hands on them. They're in the closet, not far away. So just let me know, and we can get that rolling. I have a few more months of school, and then I'm all done, and my life will get so much better. I graduate in March. So
nice.
Awesome.
March is going to be really rough. I have to write a 20 to 40 page thesis in 1 month. And
are you going for your doctorate there?
No. No. That's fine. I also said, how can you have a range of 20 to 40? That's the whole thing or the whole thing twice.
Really?
True.
You know how many people
split the difference.
You know how many people are going to try to get to that 20, because that's the minimum.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the nice thing is that part of it can be charts and statistics. So, and also, with these papers, that about 3 or 4 pages is just eaten up by the junk formatting that they make you do with the cover page, and then the citations page, and the double spacing, and the blanks, and this and that. And so I'm hoping I only have to write about 5 pages of content. I can just pad it out to 22 or something. Well, after that, my life it doesn't actually get easier, because then I still have to take my boards. So, but at least I don't have to go to school.
Yeah.
And I'll be, a lot more available.
Well, we'll try to find a point maybe in January or February before it gets too hot and heavy there to go through a few comics.
Yeah, you had mentioned a while back you thought maybe doing the first 3.
Yeah, I think that was my initial plan when we started MASKast, was to do the first 4, and then that there's 9 in the second volume, so we could split those up in 3s.
Okay, it doesn't. We can kind of stop whenever we want, because they're all standalone stories. There's no
right.
Like, you can do 1, you can do 6, you can do anything.
So okay, well, cool.
Yeah, well, and I'll try to dig out that. I think I have the comic, the M.A.S.K comic that showed all the different universes that they put out at that Comic-Con. If I can find it, I'll pull it up.
Yeah.
So.
Cool.
I'm going to go eat some dinner. It's 9 o'clock over here, and I'm hungry.
And I'm going to go to bed.
Yeah.
It's like midnight over there,
Yeah.
and you
All
gotta
right.
get up.
Actually, this has been an awesome time. I kind of basically blanked out while you guys were talking superhero stuff. Since I would love to watch. I'm so busy. Whether now I told Jason I've been so swamped at work with the new job, and then on top of that, this weekend I discovered a nice leak and rotting wood on my freaking roof. So that was my adventure. I'm
And
still even working on
he
that.
said you're like on basement level 13 at NORAD or something, and you can't. You're in the blackout zone, and we're not allowed to.
Well, I'm like kind of on the side of that, but close enough.
Area
Wow.
51.
No, it's Area 52. Get it right.
Oh, you stole my joke. You beat me to it. Yeah, that's my grandfather was kind of in that spot, and my dad said you didn't ask him what he did at work that day because he was in the Navy and intelligence, and I was like, "So, what'd you do today?" I could tell you, but then I really do have to kill you. So
Yeah.
you never knew what he did at work or how it went, but.
Well, before we get out of here, I just wanted to say a quick thanks to everybody that has commented and shared today. We had a nice following over on Facebook. I know, Eric, you and Bill both posted some stuff too, and I saw comments on your pages as well. But we just wanted to encourage people to keep talking about it and keep commenting, sharing, and we'll keep this ball rolling into the new year. And cross our fingers we'll get some more information or maybe some leaked information, as we go along. And check out Bill's video, too. He did a little fun couple-minute reaction up on his YouTube channel for MattTracker.com.
He posted it while I was at work, so I haven't had a chance to watch, but I am excited to see it.
He was driving around. I don't know if he was on his lunch break or something, but like me, I was like, oh, we got to get on the air tonight and just talk about this stuff.
And he's like, nope. Oh, okay, I'll just do it solo. And
yeah.
drive. I mean, he was that excited.
Yeah.
I know his schedule means that he goes to bed pretty early, and he's on the East Coast, so it's he and I are very temporally incompatible. He goes to bed, and I'm getting home.
Right.
Or sooner. Well, thank you again, gentlemen. It has, as always, been a wonderful trip down the M.A.S.K lane.
Yes, and
I'm going to go open that shipping box now.
Okay.
There's $30 box.
Watchers and listeners, and we look forward to seeing you next time on the next MASKast or MASKast chat.